So I was kind of thinking about Ultrasyd, who is Atari ST chiptuner who sadly passed away about a year ago on the 15th of October last year. And I remember at the time I did promise that I would do a breakdown of a track or two of his. If you saw my Ultrasyd stream last year, I was pretty cut up about, his death and everything. I think now, after a year, I should be able to get through a track breakdown without getting too sentimental. Now, Ultrasyd had a pretty recognizable style, and he used Maximizer on Atari ST, that is exclusively. He did some chiptunes on other platforms as well. But he was a Maximizer fan, and he told me that that's why he started making chiptune, because he kind of liked Maximizer so much, which was really a compliment because he was great, and I was very proud. I have checked which Ultrasyd tracks load into Maximizer and which ones don't. But I haven't done any detailed research, so this will be a live, real reaction. I think I'm going to start with Thunderdome because it's a banger. Just listen to this and then we'll get into it. there's the tune. My initial reaction to kind of listening to this, it goes on for 3 minutes and 40 seconds. So I'm thinking, you know, maybe I should let my tracks run for a bit longer. There's some very French sounding chord changes. There's a cool little bridge in the middle that I really liked. And I also really like the part where he does a melody just with the square waves. I've said this before on my stream, but I think people forget that what the power of just a straight square wave is, especially if you're used to all the fancy effects that we've got. Let's take the first pattern. We'll take a listen to the first channel. We've got a kick drum is instrument D. It's quite a deep sounding. So that's his kick. It's a lot deeper than I would use myself. But it works really well, doesn't it? He has used a noise blast at the start and then a fixed frequency decay. Interestingly, the noise isn't the highest pitch. It's A that he's used, which is kind of a middle frequency noise. And probably that's quite a cool idea, because if you would make that frequency higher, it dominates a bit more. So let's have a look at the fixed frequency. Ah, interesting. Yeah, I can see it looks like he's taken the sequence from the example tune, but he's changed it a bit. So he's cut off the first 2 steps so that it's a much deeper kick. I'm going to have a look at the volume envelope. Oh, okay, he's just gone with quite a flat envelope, and then he rolls it off with an 8. I mean, the principle is the same as one of my kick drums, but it sounds totally different. There he has cut the kick off after 1 step, which is cool for an introduction. Let's keep going down the first track. What's he got here? Yep. He keeps cutting the kicks off after 1 step. Then we go to instrument 4 for the kind of bleep sound, which is really the main hook. Let's play the pattern. So he's playing that sound at different volumes. He's actually modulating the volume. And he's using effect command H, which is the pitch slide. Let's call it main bleep sound. So that reduction in pitch will be why it sounds as it does. I mean, the sound itself is a completely standard SID sound, although I can see here it's not quite standard because he's set the software squave to be not quite square. It's actually a little bit of a pulse, but it's subtle. Probably sound just as good if it wasn't a pulse. Right, he's actually set an arpeggio, but arpeggio's not switched on in the instrument, so probably he tried it and he didn't like it. Let's listen to track 2 then. That main bleep sound, he has a volume reduced version on the second channel as a sort of fake delay. That's it's something that a lot of experienced chip tuners will do, so it's no surprise that he has done that. There's a bass sound which is quite cool. I mean, it's kind of a weird buzzer, isn't it? Again, he's used quite a few effects commands. So he's got the transpose set on the buzzer. Interesting. Normally I would set the transpose to be on the square wave rather than the buzzer. But, you know, obviously he's got some good results. He's also using effect E, which is detune amount, which will affect the modulation of the buzzer with the square wave. He's making good use of the effects, which is brilliant for me as the author of this software, to see like someone getting good results from using the effects. It makes me quite pleased. There's a lot going on there. There's also a pitch drop. He's using effect C as well. Ah, which he's enabling and disabling the start sync. That's quite cool. That will mean he gets the sound restarting while it's playing, which is quite neat. The buzzer sound is just the square wave, and the buzzer, he's got a soft buzzer. He does actually have a noise sequence, but the noise channel isn't enabled. And there's a bit of a fixed detune going on the buzzer. He goes down to D0. It's a gorgeous buzzer sound. If you just play the sound, right? I mean, it sounds like it's modulating too quickly, right? But then when he puts the effects commands, brilliant. We've also got instrument 1 there, which sounds just like a square wave. Yeah, it is. We've already got a little bit into his style, knowing that he's using those tracker commands. I certainly don't do that, even though I wrote the tracker commands. Do you know what I mean? Okay, a nice arpeggio. He has put in some cool delay effects. And there's actually 3 instruments here, 9, A, and B. Let's check those out. Sounds like a kind of a SID. Also sounds like a kind of a SID. Okay, that's just a square wave. Let's look at these 3 different instruments. Arp 1, it's a noise click and then a SID sound. The SID sound has a very narrow pulse width. Arp 2 is the same. He may have made a mistake here. He has the SID enabled, but there isn't actually a timer pattern set. So that will be the same if we set that to 0, which it is. When you're working on tracks, it's easy to try stuff and then partially revert it. So he probably wasn't even aware that he'd left the SID on. Arp 3. This is just the square on its own without the noise. So normally when I do an echo, I would take 3 steps, but he is taking 6, give a slightly different effect. Well, I like that, the use of the 3 instruments there. All right, let's go on to the second pattern. What have we got? Okay, more kick drum. And he finishes the pattern with a slightly different ending, but it's very similar to the previous pattern. All right, let's check what's on the second track. Nothing too special there. It's a lot like the previous pattern. Let's listen to track 3. You can hear at the end he's changed the notes of the arpeggio slightly. Yeah, he's dropped the last couple of bars. It was a G, I think, and yeah, he's dropped it to an E. And I suppose the reason he does that is because it introduces the next part of the song. Bleep the same, but different drums. So he is playing the kick drum at a different pitch, which won't have any effect because it's a fixed frequency sequence. And he's also playing E, which is a very interesting sounding snare. Well, I can't wait to get into that. And he's put a nice, neat delay on it too, of a 1/8 note. The snare goes on for a long time. He cuts it short with the tracker command. So he's got a mix there of noise and square, and he's enabling and disabling them at interesting times. Snares are very difficult to get right on gwEm. Everyone has their own recipe. He's clearly come up with this one himself. That's not based on anything that I have seen before. Noise. Starts low, goes up, and then goes down. Volume envelope, more or less flat with a little bit of a fade out. But again, I mean, that snare kind of sounds a bit shit until you play it in the track with all the effects commands. Well, it sounds awesome. Let's check out the next track here. Okay, the bass again. He's made good use of the extra channel here because he's playing a few snares here in between the echoes of the bleeps. So that's I mean, again, most experienced composers will overlay instruments in tracks in that way. Let's listen to the next track. We analysed that before. The chords are a bit different there, though. Something a bit different at the end. Yeah, he's using the square wave there as almost like a second bass sound. Those of you who watch my streams will know I try and get each track sounding really good on its own, but you can see each individual track, they don't make too much sense on their own, right? Like that bass is like, okay, what's happening there? But all together, it works so well. But this is the great thing, isn't it? About, you know, different composers have different approaches. They're all equally valid. Ah, nice kind of rise there. Something for us to dig into. Okay, instrument D is the kick drum we know. Oh, we've got an instrument 20 there, which is just a noise, but it sounded cool, didn't it? That's literally just noise at the highest frequency, at maximum volume. Cool. It adds some glitchy sort of impact there. To make it sound higher pitched, he is gradually increasing the slide speed. I think a lot of the magic of Ultrasyd is the way he's using those tracker commands. That plus really good composition. You can see the slide is increasing speed there. That's what's happening there. Oh, he's gone into overdrive there with the tracker commands. Very cool. He's switching to the volume sequence 2E. Let's have a look at what sequence 2E is. Oh, it just cuts the sound off. Okay, that will create a nice stuttering effect. And he's chopping up that arpeggio as part of the build. Let's go on to the next section then. Okay, that's a square wave bass which is fading out. He's started with the kick drum and then switched into a bass note here. What he could have done is you can actually play melodic kick drums in Maximizer with a special command you put into the fixed frequency envelope. If you put in all Fs, then it will revert to using the pitch. This is a half length pattern, so it's only 2 bars long. That's the buzzer which he's messing around with. So he's messing around with some detunes. That really is instrument 5. That's another buzzer bass. This is his first buzzer bass. This is the second. Interesting. It's basically the same sound. I think he's experimented with noise, which is disabled. You know, as he was developing the track, he used different instruments. All right, let's have a listen to track 3. That's a noise blast. And a cool little drum roll. And if you look on his snare, he's got a pitch drop. That's quite cool. Let's try it without that pitch drop on. I bet it won't sound as good. No, no, better with the pitch drop. Let's go on to the next section. That's a bit unexpected, isn't it? But it works together with the second channel, okay, and makes quite a cool bass sound. So that's the kick drum, and he immediately goes into a bass note. We've also got on instrument 7, which is kind of just a short blip. Interesting, he's got a transpose come on, but he's set the amount there to 0. Probably he was experimenting with that. Let's have a look at that 7. Well, there's not much to it, it's just noise and square wave. Noise is at a particular frequency, not the highest. He's chosen that for a reason. And as Dirty 12 points out, it kind of gives it a triplet-ish groove. He has separated the 7s by dotted 8th notes, so it's definitely giving it a triplet groove. Yeah, you hear it there, they do. Over 2 channels, he's got a really cool triplet hi-hat. And what's he got on the final track? That's the main bleep sound, and you can see he's let rip with the pitch slide there. I mean, that's the main effect. That and a quick change of the volume sequence there. Do the next one. Did you hear that? There was a ghost snare there, which will be an echo of the snare on the second track. That bass is nice. I think it's yet another instrument, isn't it? Yes. Right, he's set a D tune there, but it's not actually enabled anywhere. It's just literally a triangle buzzer with a square wave. Yeah, it sounds a bit like an LFO the way he's done that. And he's done that with these E commands, which are fine D tune. Kind of odd because he's actually got fine D tune switched off on that instrument, but he's got transpose on. I expect if we remove those fine D tunes, it will sound exactly the same. Yep, it sounds exactly the same. In terms of making like an optimal tune in terms of CPU, I don't think Ultra SID was caring very much about that. You can see all over this track there's like wasteful things done. Clearly he was just focused on making a really awesome tune. Once he'd got the result he wanted, he didn't bother going back and like fixing little stuff. What we liked was this cool drum groove, which is over 2 channels. Almost effortlessly, actually. And if you look, these are patterns 1 and 2, so these would have been the first, probably the first 2 patterns that he did to make this tune. Oh, a little cut ups. He's switched drum sounds a bit there. He's let the snare drum and the kick drum ring out differently. It is actually the same sound, but he's changed it with the effects. Let's listen to the second channel. Yeah, he's got a cool 1-2 zap there with his third buzzer bass. Listen to both of those together. We've got some bleeps there. Instrument 6, that's a new one. That's sounds like a minor arpeggio. A complex one, don't get me wrong. It's got his minor arpeggio there, and then he does the same an octave up. That's quite cool. I like that. But even though he's got that super complex arpeggio, he's cut it short so you don't get to hear all the notes in it. Next pattern. Okay, he's mixing it up there with the bleep. He's doing a portamento from the kick drum sound into just a basic square wave. That gives it that little sweep. Okay. So I think he's kind of viewing channels 1 and 2 as one in a way. He's mixing the instruments on channels 1 and 2 in particularly in quite a complex way. That bleep sound is over both channels, but you don't really notice that. And the little wobble there works really well, gives a lot of extra groove when you've got both of those playing at once. In the square wave, he's gone up to F. Listen out for the F at the end. Okay, we've got some arps here. A is changing the arpeggio sequence. Right, that's actually a SID. Different pulse width on the software component. This is a chord inversion that he's got there on the up. But then he immediately overwrites that chord inversion with a load of A commands. Let's have a look at some of them. We've got a lot of E. 14. I can see Sid has been looking at his books of chord theory for some of this. That's standard. That's just a power chord. Okay, yeah, that's a minor there. That one's quite easy. Okay, a different bass there. Pitch slides, transpose. He's used bass C. He's using bass C for these little motif bits. The arpeggios. Imagine he'll change the end. Yeah, he did. L is the volume sequence, so yeah, he's probably making those go on, sounds go on for longer. Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. Right, this was the bridge section that I liked, so let's listen to what he's got going on. Chords are different, okay, because it's a bridge. That melody is happening on instrument 1, which was the same square wave he was using for the bass earlier. And actually, he still uses it for the bass on the same, on this track. Look there, those two alternate notes. Look, he's changing the sequence speed, which will change the portamento rate, which he's using there. So it will actually increase the speed of the portamento on the next step, rather than him changing the portamento rate here. He's actually changed the sequence speed. It's kind of interesting. Vibrato. Ah, yeah, he's kicked in a vibrato. Let's have a look at some of his vibratos. He's using sequence 15 for the vibrato. That's a nice, very long and quite deep vibrato. Other than that, he's got some like echoes and stuff happening. Ah, yeah, there we go. So I think what we were listening to was the echo of the main lead, which is happening on this track. He's got a funky little noise effect there, mixed with some square wave, and then I think it's square wave from there on out. I mean, there is some portamento commands, but he's mixing them with normal pitch slides. He's very fond of that pitch slide command, isn't he? He uses that everywhere. Super melodic, very French. Really good with the delay. I think that might be my favourite bit so far. Instrument 13, have we seen that one? No. Let's have a look at instrument 13. Right, that's an arpeggio. What arpeggio is it though? Well, yeah, I mean an inversion, but then he's overwriting the arpeggio anyway with 1E, so you know, whatever it was originally is kind of irrelevant. This looks like a minor seventh. A bit of glitchiness here, which he's doing by changing the volume sequence. He uses the slide for almost everything. I mean, he's using it to get a cool bass. He's using it to slide notes. He's using it as like a fake cut-off effect on the bleep sound. He's using it to change how the snare sounds. I would never have imagined someone using the commands that way. Okay, that's very different. Okay, so those arpeggio zaps, he's using those. Actually, if we look, that sound is a SID as well with a funny pulse width. Yeah, and look again, he's changing the sequence speed of that instrument so that it will zap faster there, so it will kind of give a glitchy stutter. Yeah, that's exactly how it sounds. The end was nice, wasn't it? That almost sounded like a standard SID. But actually it was just the ARP blip with running slower with the different steps. Listen, he's using the square wave like a kind of a melody. But it's over both channels. Kind of a call and response thing happening. It's changing the volume sequence there so that blip goes on for longer. I'll listen to the last channel. Okay, nice melody, which I appreciate very much. He's doing echoes on all of the channels. It's a mixture of what's happening in the other channels and also what he is doing in this channel. Right, that'll be an echo, I'm sure. Yeah, it is. He's very good with these stuttery, glitchy. It makes it really groovy, but it's also kind of aggressive as well. Mixing up all the instruments there. Snare, bleep, bass. Let's have a look what's going on here. He's mixing up a bleep with a square wave. He's got a bit of noise. And this is quite cool. So you've got noise here and here and just a noise blast. But he's woven the melody that's on this channel around it. Lots of pitch slide, vibrato, changing of the volume envelope. It is kind of going over all the tracks, you're right, Gunstick. Yeah, kind of diagonal composition, as you say. Okay, we've got another breakdown. Okay, the bass sound from the intro again. Nice composition. Let's let's have a look where the snare is. I assume it's probably going to be on the second track. No, it's not. Okay, he's interpolating the snare with the arpeggio, which is probably something I would have done as well. With these arpeggios, you can actually drop quite a few notes and you don't really notice. Yeah, another bridge. Okay, there was something happening there and at the end that I'm going to have a look at. Okay, that's like one of the previous patterns. Okay, that's... Oh yeah, I mean it's the diagonal composition there with a nice little flare sound on the bass. We've got instrument E, is that one we've seen? Yeah, that's just the snare. Okay, so earlier he was using the square wave as a bass, and now he's using the buzzer together with the kick. Those hi-hats are very attacky, aren't they? Okay, lots of melody and snare as well, and little noise blasts. I like the arrangement there. He's literally just done one bar of something different to introduce this next part here. Okay, what's that bass sound? It's actually two bass sounds. It's tracks 2 and 3 together. He's used his standard buzzer with the same note. Actually, there is a volume command there which won't do anything. That sound is a combination of square and buzzer, so it's only going to slide the square differently. Don't forget there's only one buzzer, so the frequency of the buzzer part will be the same on both channels, but the square will have a different rate of slide. Let's listen to them both together. Yeah, that's the magic, both of them together. Sounds like another sound, but it's not really. It's just the cool way he's layered it. The way it loops is nice as well. It's completely seamless. Sounds natural. There we go. So that's the complete track. Now what I like to do sometimes with other people's tunes is have a look at the way they've assigned their sequences and patterns. He has used hex 30 sequences and hex 4A patterns. So if we try and optimize use of each, we'll see if he's got some unused patterns in there or something like that. So let's do the patterns first. So that's 4A. So watch this 4A and we'll see if that changes. Only 3 patterns. Let's do sequences. Okay, that's 3-0. Let's pack the sequences. There's no unused sequences. That's quite tight. Let's have a look at some of these unused instruments, if there's any gems in there. Okay, he didn't use that sound. It's kind of like an echo. Yeah, look, you can see in the volume sequence there. It's sounding echo because he's repeating the last step there, so it'll carry on. It's interesting, does have quite a lot of instruments, doesn't he? Particularly bass sounds, he's mixing those up. I mean, that's not a surprise, you can tell that just by listening to the track. When I look at his instruments, right, there's nothing special in any of them. But it is special, not because of what he's doing in the instrument editor, but what he's doing in the tracker part of the program. All these effects commands, particularly the slide, he's going mad on that, and the composition. And the way he's changing the instruments using the command, doubling up, having melodies going over 3 channels with echoes. The complexity is not the instruments, it's in his sequencing. Maximizer is a tool like any other, and people use it in their own individual way. We've all got the same tools. and we all make something completely different. I'm going to roll it. Well, yeah, there we are. We've certainly lost a great talent with Ultrasyd, particularly on the Atari scene. I mean, when I think about my favourite maximizer composers, I mean, he was one of the best and such a lovely guy as well. I think it probably helped him not coming from the demo scene. Clearly, he's got a very open mind about the best way of using the tool, and I guess that's part of where he gets his unique sound from. I mean, he was advanced. And a super advanced composer, one of the best of his era. And yet he seemed to come from nowhere. I mean, his tunes were amazing just from when he first appeared on our scene. They were already complex bangers. It's interesting to think, where would he have gone? How would he have used the new effects that I've added to Maximizer? Maybe he'd have tried out some different platforms, as you know, he did SID and Commodore 64. Yeah, sad. Take care and have a wonderful evening, guys.